Now let's go on to the Biak na Bato. Aguinaldo joined General Miguel Malvar in Batangas. Spaniards are in complete control of Cavite but failed to stop the rebellion. Aguinaldo proceeded to Bulacan at Biak na Bato and established Biak na Bato Republic. Governor Jean de Rivera realized that he might defeat the Katipuneros but he might not crush the revolution. He proposed the peaceful negotiation that was called the Pact of Biak na Bato. So let's talk about the Pact of Biak na Bato. The Pact of Biak na Bato consists that the forces of Aguinaldo would lay down under their arms and be granted an amnesty and be allowed to return to their homes. Aguinaldo will receive 800,000 pesos to be paid in 3 installments and 400,000 pesos upon leaving the Philippines and 200,000 pesos when at least 700 arms have been surrendered. 200,000 pesos upon the declaration of general amnesty. On December 27, 1897, General Aguinaldo with 400,000 pesos left for Hong Kong, accompanied by 25 revolutionary leaders. So what are the results of Biak na Bato? The results of Biak na Bato was that the pact was not successful. It was not short-lived. Filipinos were suspicious and so didn't surrender their arms. The Spanish authorities failed to fulfill their amount. They also started to arrest the known rebels and rebel sympathies. Now let's talk about the second phase of Philippine Revolution. General Francisco Macabolos of Tarlac established a temporary revolutionary movement in central Luzon on April 8, 1898. The clashes between Spanish forces and Filipino rebels continue in Zambales, Ilocos Sur, Cebu, Bulacan, Camarines Norte, and Caloocan. Aguinaldo in Hong Kong. Let's talk about what happened by Aguinaldo while he was in Hong Kong. He deposited the money he got with the intention of using it to purchase arms to fight against Spaniards. The U.S. consul in Singapore and in Hong Kong convinced him several times to side with the Americans. Aguinaldo returned to the Philippines and to fight with the Americans. He gave 117,000 pesos to Wildman for purchase of arms. The return of Aguinaldo in Philippines. Aguinaldo invited all the Filipinos to side with the Americans. Filipino rebels started to fight against Spaniards and won one victory after another. End of June 1898, almost whole Luzon was in their control except Cavite. In November, General Leonardo Folon and General Anais Jokno ousted Spanish troops and established the Republic of Visayas. On December 29, 1898, Cebu was captured by Filipinos. General Vicente Lucban's forces captured several provinces in January 1899, and on May 1899, Filipinos took Zamboanga City and drove away General Rego de los Rios, the last Governor-General of the Philippines. Governor-General Basilio Agustin made several steps to win the Filipinos to their side. Consultative Assembly was created on May 4, 1899. Filipino volunteer militia fought against the Americans. The assembly did not accomplish anything and was dissolved on June 13, 1899. Now, government under Emilio Aguinaldo. When Aguinaldo arrived in the Philippines, he brought with him Constitution for Federal Government written by Mariano Ponce. Aguinaldo established on May 24, 1898 a temporary dictatorial government with himself as dictator. On June 23, 1898, he established a revolutionary government as advised by Mabini. Aguinaldo became the president again. And let's talk about Apolinario Mabini. Apolinario Mabini was born in Tanawan, Batangas on July 23, 1864. Physically disabled because of being paralytic. Aguinaldo's trusted advisor. During revolutionary government, he was a cabinet member and Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, also known as the brains of the Philippines Revolution and sublime paralytic. The Declaration of Philippine Independence was declared on June 12, 1898 under dictatorial government at Kawit, Cavite. Ambrosio Rianzares Bautista wrote the declaration signed by 98 persons. Marcela Agoncillo saw the Philippine flag. Marcha Filipina Magalo composed by Juan Felipe played when the Philippine flag was raised. It became the official hymn. Filipinas, the lyrics of hymn written by Jose Palma. August 1, 1898, leaders from Luzon ratified the proclamation of independence. Now, let's talk about the Malolos Congress. The Congress wouldn't be a law-making body, but it acted only as an advisory body. Revolutionary Congress was called to a session by Aguinaldo at Barasuan Church on September 15, 1898. Ratification of Philippine independence on June 12, 1898 was the first important act of Malolos Congress. The framing of a constitution. After the proposed constitution of Mabini and Paterno was rejected, the Congress discussed the constitutional plan of Felipe Calderon that was debated for a month. Union of church and state was one of the controversial provisions on which they voted for its separation. The Malolos Congress approved the constitution signed by Aguinaldo because of Mabini's objection. Aguinaldo approved and promulgated the changes in the Congress. The first Philippine Republic was inaugurated on January 23, 1899 in Malolos, Bulacan, sometimes called Malolos Republic. The three branches of government was the executive, legislative, and the judicial, wherein executive vested in president, legislative assembly of representatives, and the judicial was the Supreme Courts of Justice and other lower courts headed by Chief Justice. Now, let's talk about newspaper of revolution. El Heraldo de la Revolution, official newspaper of the revolutionary government, established on September 1898, helped to keep alive the spirit of nationalism and patriotism. The other one was La Independencia, newspaper of Antonio Luna. Initial issue came out on September 3, 1898, contributed in promoting nationalism. The government at work. Education was one of the problems faced by the new government. The government appropriated 35,000 for educational purposes on 1899. Philippine Army organized a regional basis, with each province having its own brigade. The army lacked arms. Their artillery came in variety, European, Japanese, and American. The Philippine foreign policy. Philippines wasn't recognized by the family of nations despite the efforts of some Filipinos. Agoncillo was assigned to persuade the U.S. to recognize the government of Aguinaldo, but was ignored because the Americans had already decided to annex the Philippines. the end of First Philippine Republic. The independence was short-lived because of the coming of the new colonizing power about the United States. The war between Filipino and Americans broke out in 1899. President Aguinaldo was captured by Americans in Isabela on March 23, 1901, which signaled the end of the First Philippine Republic. Thank you for listening today, and I hope you have learned something about my report. Thank you, and God bless. Keep safe.